Welcome to the Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting, February 7th, 2012. We're going to begin our meeting with the salute to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pullen, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Galloway?
Here.
Mr. Snakes?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dent?
Here.
Here.
All right, thank you. Before we begin the agenda this evening, we have a presentation that's going to be made that we're very, very happy to have before us, and it says a lot about our community and a lot about the volunteers that serve our community. Our Fire Marshal Rich DiPolito and the Chief of the Lowtown Frails's Rescue Squad, Christopher Reef, are here to make a couple presentations. So, gentlemen.
Can I have paramedic Cindy Herr and Officer Spirit Tassano come up front, please? Not doing it. You're killing me. Want to bring the baby up? Mind coming up? So on Christmas Day last year, paramedic Cindy Herr, EMT Robin Kraft, who couldn't make it today, she just received notice of an ill family member, and Officer Spirit Tassano were called to Falls Township for a maternity case. When they arrived, they found Heather here in labor, literally next to the Christmas tree. Christmas morning, 11 a.m. Quite often in EMS and public safety, we're challenged with the tragedies of life, and it's not often and every day that we get to witness, one of the greatest stories ever told, in the birth of a new baby. In tradition, with EMS, shortly thereafter, they walked in the door, and baby Gabriel on Christmas Day was born at home, Falls Township. They were both transported to St. Mary and obviously are doing very well and very healthy. A tradition in EMS is when you deliver a baby in the field, or assist delivering the baby in the field, because we all know the mother does all the work. You're pinned with a stork pin, the color of the child, the blue for boy, pink for girl. And so today, without missing a beat, paramedic Herr. Officer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a good day. It's a good day to make a connection between public safety and our residents of Falls Township, and a successful story. We're happy. Good ending. So thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you very much for Chief Reef, and thank those volunteers, and obviously Officer Spirit Tassano for his work. Proud to have another member of the Falls Township community, and a good-looking one at that. So, always it's a great way to start off the meeting, and I'm sure it was a great way to start off Christmas morning. Yeah. But thank you again for everybody, and I know Rich DiPolito, the Fire Marshal, helped organize this presentation, so I want to thank him, and also Mr. Gray. So, okay. With that, we're going to move on with our agenda. Item number 1 is a conditional use hearing for AT&T at 207 Austin Drive. Mr. Gray? Or actually, excuse me, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. This is a conditional use hearing. The applicant is New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, doing business as AT&T Mobility. The property is tax parcel number 13-40-45-1. Want me to wait a moment?
That's okay. There's some local camera crews here for the early for the presentation. They're just putting away their equipment, but let's thank them for coming out.
Again, the tax parcel number is 13-40-45-1, which is located in the Township of Falls, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This is an application requesting conditional use to permit an upgrade to its facility with the addition of 3 LTE antennas, the installation of a new LTE radio equipment cabinet on the existing concrete pad, substantially the same size, and the installation of remote radio heads and cable to the new LTE antennas, so they will operate with the radio equipment and will bring the existing facility up to the 4G standards that are currently located on a monopole tower located at 8900 Old Route 13. The applicant is represented by Christopher Schubert, and I believe he is
We're
present this evening.
doing 207 Austin Drive first.
Oh, I apologize. Forget that. My apologies. I picked up the wrong one.
So I see Miss Gallagher's there. Maybe she.
We'll start this over. Okay.
Thank you.
This is a conditional use hearing. The applicant is New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, doing business as AT&T Mobility. The property is tax parcel number 13-4-90-1, located in the Township of Falls, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This is an application requesting conditional use to permit an upgrade to its facility with the addition of 3 LTE antennas, the installation of a new LTE radio equipment cabinet on the existing concrete pad located at the base of the water tank, the addition of a rack for power converter, and the installation of remote radio heads and cables to the new LTE antennas so they will operate with the radio equipment and will bring the existing facility up to the 4G standards that are currently located on the water tower located on Austin Drive. If we could have a motion to open the hearing. The applicant is represented by Christopher Schubert. If we could have an motion to open the hearing, I will instruct Mr. Schubert on the procedure that we follow in Township for conditional use hearings for cell antennas involving co-location.
Okay, and a conditional use hearing, just for public information, is a hearing that is done by the township whenever there is a use proposed that isn't necessarily intended, but is allowed. Conditional use allows the township to have a little bit of control over the use of the property. And it's very typical, and it's been the habit of this board as well as boards all over the country, I'm sure, to use conditional use hearings for cell towers. And so right now we'll have a motion to open the conditional use hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Seconded.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schubert, it is the policy and procedure of the Falls Township Board of Supervisors for conditional use applications involving cell antennas that are co-locations on existing towers to attempt to streamline the process somewhat. We would ask that you introduce the project, introduce the application, admit any evidence or any documents that you plan on using in support of your application, and then give a brief summary of the testimony of your witnesses this evening. We would then ask that you have your witnesses come forward and be sworn, and that you inquire of them if they heard your summary and if they agree with your summary. At that time, you and your witnesses will be made available from the Board of Supervisors, the staff of the township, and any resident requesting party status. Is that procedure clear, Mr. Schubert?
That is, Mr. Clark. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Christopher Schubert. I'm the attorney here tonight on behalf of the applicant, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, also known as AT&T Mobility. And we are here and filed a conditional use application essentially for the addition of 3 new antennas on an existing site that's located at 207 Austin Drive. It's literally right down the road from where the township building is. There's an existing water tank on the property. The property is currently owned by the Falls Township Municipal Authority. It was originally owned by the township until it was conveyed over to the authority. At the time that the original AT&T installation was created, the township was the owner of the site. There was a lease agreement that was signed, which ultimately was assigned over to the authority when it was sold. There are currently 9 antennas that are on that water tank. On the side of the water tank, there are other additional antennas that are already there that are higher on the tank, but these antennas that are owned currently by AT&T are on the side of the water tank at approximately 95 feet, 94 feet on the tank. And what AT&T is proposing to do is to add 3 additional antennas to bring the site up, as Mr. Clark had summarized, to 4G standards. That's the current state-of-the-art for telecommunication service. I have 2 witnesses. One is the radio frequency engineer. His name is Mark Rubin. And I also have Jim Prokopiak, who is the site acquisition consultant project manager for this site, who is familiar with the site plans and would talk about the site plans. I do have a number of exhibits that I've already pre-marked and handed up to each of the board members. And essentially what I would do is first call my radio frequency witness, Mr. Rubin, who would testify that we have filed a conditional use for the addition of 3 antennas, which are known as LTE, or long-term evolution antennas, that would bring that site up to 4G standards. Mr. Rubin would testify that AT&T currently has a lease agreement, which is marked as applicant's Exhibit A2, originally with the township, but by way of assignment is now with the authority. The authority owns the property, and in fact there is a picture of the property itself marked as applicant's Exhibit A3, which shows the water tank, which is the subject of where the telecommunications facility is located. Mr. Rubin would further testify that he's a radio frequency expert that has been employed by AT&T, and he has the authority to be here tonight to testify in support of the application. His CV is attached as applicant's Exhibit A4. Mr. Rubin would further testify that AT&T is licensed by the Federal Communications Commission to operate a wireless network in what is known as the Philadelphia Metropolitan Trading Area. That would cover this area of Bucks County, Falls Township, and that in accordance with the license that AT&T is expected to adhere to all the rules and regulations of the FCC in terms of operating its network. Mr. Rubin would testify that this site is necessary and the upgrades are necessary to bring the site up to current standards, which are known as long-term evolution, or 4G. What he's done is he's prepared a short statement, which is marked as applicant's Exhibit A6, which gets into a little bit more detail as to what 4G means and what improvements and upgrades are needed to bring the site up to 4G. And essentially, what he would testify to is that there would be 3 antennas that would be added. These antennas are 8 feet in height and about 1 foot in width. They would be put on the side of the tank in conjunction with the other non-existing antennas. The top of the new antennas would reach to 96 feet. The overall height of the water tank is about 120 feet, so we'd still be well below the top of the water tank. In addition to that, there would be a cabinet that would be installed at the bottom of the tank on an existing concrete pad. The cabinet itself would house the radio equipment that would operate these antennas and ultimately be connecting these antennas up to the telephone network so that they would operate as they are supposed to. The ordinance requires consideration of whether, with the addition of the antennas, there would be any further radio wave emissions that would exceed the FCC limit. There was a report that was commissioned by AT&T, which is marked as applicant's Exhibit A7, and that report concludes that the facility will operate at less than 5% of the established FCC limit, which means it's well below the FCC limit in terms of radio wave emissions. The ordinance also considers or requires that the applicant consider the impact of any potential interference to be caused with the addition of the antennas. And marked as applicant's Exhibit A8 is a non-interference letter, which has also been prepared and commissioned on behalf of AT&T. And that concludes, in light of the fact that AT&T operates its network at a fixed frequency, that there would be no possibility of interference unless the equipment would malfunction. If the equipment would malfunction, AT&T, since they remotely monitor these sites, would be able to detect any problems with it, shut it down, and make sure that any deficiencies in the system were corrected. The site plans, and essentially that would conclude Mr. Rubin's testimony. Mr. Rubin, You've been here as I presented a summary of your testimony. Is there
Mr.
anything-
Schubert, we'd like you to go through all your witnesses and then ask for your witnesses to come forward, be sworn before you ask them that question.
Okay, sure. Now, the next witness I would call would be Mr. Prokopiak. Mr. Prokopiak is the site acquisition consultant and project manager on this particular application. He would testify that he oversees the collection of documentation in support of the application and has particular expertise from the standpoint of working on numerous of these types of sites on behalf of AT&T. In conjunction with the filing and the preparation of this application for filing, there were site plans that were prepared and have been marked as applicant's exhibit A10. And these are site plans which have been modified and revised in accordance with suggestions and comments from the Falls Township Planning Commission. There are smaller copies that are a part of the application package which have been handed up that reflect that the site plans have been revised as of January 31st of this year. And again, those revisions were made to address the comments of the Planning Commission. One of the comments was to make sure that we showed an out-boundary site plan so that we see the entire property that's the subject of the application. That revision has been made in the site plans. Another request was that we provide and show where the off-street parking is going to be located on the property, and that has also been provided on the site plans as well. Mr. Prokopiak would testify that he's familiar with the property. He's also familiar with the site plans, having worked with the engineer in the preparation of the site plans, and that the site plans would accurately depict what is currently out at the property and what is proposed with this application. In terms of any adverse impact, Mr. Prokopiak would testify that there would be no adverse impact on the public health, safety, or welfare in light of the fact that this is an existing facility, this is an existing water tower, and that it's more than adequate to support the addition of the 3 antennas. In addition, Mr. Prokopiak would testify that he's requested that the site engineers prepare a structural analysis, which has been done and which is attached as part of the application packet as Exhibit A11. And no surprise, in light of the fact that this is a water tank supporting a lot of water up in the air, that with the addition of the 3 antennas, there is no problem in that structure supporting that installation and those upgrades. Also attached is applicant's Exhibit A12, which is the Township Engineer's review letter of December 19 of last year, which also was reviewed at the time of the Planning Commission meeting. And essentially going through that, the applicant, on any of the issues that would be open issues, the one example that we haven't presented any testimony on tonight would deal with the insurance that would have to be provided. All of these would be appropriate conditions of approval, and I'm advised that the applicant is willing to comply with all or any of the open issues that haven't been addressed tonight through the presentation of documents or through testimony. And that, in large part, would be the summation of Mr. Prokopiak's testimony, and would essentially conclude.
Just have your 2 witnesses come forward, ask them to be sworn, and then essentially ask them if they heard this summary of testimony and do they agree with it. And we'd ask that you do that individually with each witness.
Now, gentlemen, you've been present when I have presented the summary of your testimony. Is there anything that you would add or modify to that summary?
No.
And you would adopt the summary of your testimony as your own?
Yes.
And now I would offer the witnesses to the board or to any members of the public.
Okay. We've heard Mr. Schubert's summation of the proposal. And obviously, we have Mr. Rubin and Mr. Prokopiak here to answer any questions about their specific parts of this plan. We'll go to board members and have them ask questions, and then we'll go to the professionals here to see if they have any questions, and then see if there's any public comment needed. All right, so board comments or questions. Mr. Galloway?
Just a comment. So the antennas are going to be well below the top of the tower, and it is necessary.
Somebody has to answer in the
Sorry, to
affirmative
the-
at the microphone, please.
To the microphone, yeah.
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Prokopiak. And it is necessary for AT&T to bring it up to the industry standard, to bring it up to 4G.
Yes, these are the LTE antennas, their latest technology, and these are needed in order for them to do that. The antennas existing at the site don't have the capability.
Thank you.
Mr. Snipes?
Yeah, you described 4G standards or long-term evolution. Could you just briefly say what that is, that they, unless it's way over our heads or something, what that means, so we can understand why this needs to be done?
Sure. LTE, at least for the time being, is a data-only technology. It basically is higher speed than what you're used to with 3G or UMTS as an AT&T subscriber. So 4G-capable devices, any smart device, iPads, iPhones, BlackBerries, any of those devices that are LTE-capable would enjoy faster data speeds for streaming video, email, internet, etc.
And I forget whether you said that this is actually required, and if required, what authority, who requires this, or is it just desirable for the customer?
It is mostly desirable for the customer to be competitive. It's the exact same technology and at the same frequency that Verizon Wireless has already deployed their 4G network.
And how many antennas are already on the tower?
9.
9. So obviously what is one, I mean, I remember it was said before, because the tower is built to hold so much water, the addition of the antenna is not a stress on the structural integrity of the tower. What approximately does an antenna weigh?
They're approximately 60 pounds.
60 pounds, okay. All right, that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dents?
No, I have no questions or comments. It's very straightforward.
Mr. Rocco?
The only question I had was the panels, the antennas, are they going to match the color of the tower itself?
Yes, that was a condition, I believe, at the Planning Commission, that they would be painted to match, and I believe that note was indicated on the revised plans, but they will be painted to match.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. All right, thank you. And just for clarification, there is a cabinet being added to the pad where the other cabinets are, correct?
That's correct. There's a cabin being added to the existing lease area there, so there won't be any expansion of the site. It'll all be contained in the existing lease area.
Okay. All right. Okay. Having board comments and questions. Mr. Sullivan, comments or questions from you?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
No questions, Mr. Harvey.
Okay. Is there any public comment needed? See one hand. Sir, come forward and just identify yourself, please.
Yeah.
Tom Wilson of Thornridge Drive. Been a resident for 37 years. Just to clarify the situation, that water tower on 207 Austin, is that an active tower as far as being used for the water? Does anyone know?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe it
is?
is. Yes, it
It
is.
is an active tower.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Another hand? Mr. Robert?
Evening, gentlemen. Gallo Sobert, Fairless Hills. On these towers, and they're, one of them is going on the water tower, Austin Drive, and so forth. How many other telephone companies, communication companies, are on that tower? Number one. Number two, do we have some structural calculations that say that that tower will hold and take all of those communication additions? What's the distance between item 1 and item 2, or text map parcel 13-4-131 and 1340-45001? And are they compatible? Do they go from one tower to another tower? Is that the reason for two? And how many other towers or how many other communication towers does AT&T Mobility have in the township?
Okay, well, I can answer some of your questions, and some I'm going to allow the Mr. Schubert or Mr. Prokopiak or Mr. Rubin to answer.
Sure.
Part of the application, they have to present us structural documentation.
And that's here?
They have to. It's presented to us. It's given to our township engineer. He reviews it. It has to be done by an engineer and stamped by an engineer. It has to be. It's
Structural engineer or an
yes,
electrical engineer?
Structural.
Structural engineer?
And so that is done. That's something that we have, and that's something obviously that Mr. Sullivan looks at when he does his review of it. If they don't have that, they don't go forward. And understand, just to clarify, these are antennas, as Mr. Snipes asked. They're roughly 60 pounds. They're 8 feet by roughly in size. Not necessarily a tower on top of the tower.
8 inches.
Okay.
Okay.
And so, in terms of how many other companies, I was looking real quickly. I don't know, Mr. Rubin or Mr. Schubert, if you're aware of that, Mr. Prokopiak, how many other companies are on that tower? There are a couple others. I don't have, let's see.
Mr. Harvey, there's at least one. I believe there is 2 other carriers there, and I think it may be Sprint and T-Mobile.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Okay. The distance between the two, I mean, this one obviously is this tower is at one corner of Falls Township, basically, right where it meets Middletown. The other tower is near closer to Tullytown, really. It's on the complete opposite side of the township. I don't know if these towers specifically communicate with each other or if this is just a process AT&T is going through. I don't know if one of the gentlemen wants to comment on that. Is this why these 2 towers? Is there any need for them to be done at the same time? Is there something about communication? Mr. Rubin? Well, I'm going to let Mr. Rubin answer your question.
Sorry. Sure. Go ahead.
I'm not armed with the information of how many facilities AT&T operates within the township. Of course, that's readily available, but I don't have it with me this evening. And yes, these facilities do communicate several miles in every direction. So it would make sense that these facilities overlap or provide overlapping coverage. There are, a couple of thousand facilities like the ones we're proposing tonight within the Philadelphia region, which is all of South Jersey, southeastern PA, and the entire state of Delaware. There's nothing unique that we're proposing at these 2 in particular that we're not having to perform the exact same construction with additional antennas at each of those other 2,000 cell sites.
So essentially, this is a standard upgrade that happens that other facilities that have the older antennas will be undergoing these upgrades as months go by.
Exactly. Every single one needs an upgrade.
Okay.
Is there any consideration been given for safety, seeing that water tower happens to be the high point of Fairless Hills Little League?
Safety in terms of...
The kids that are playing there for attachment to lightning rods, do we have them? Are they there to...
whether or not the water tower is fenced off to begin with, so the water tower is fenced off and not, so you're not going to have kids right underneath it at all. Whether or not it has lightning rods on it, I would assume if it did, it would have had them on before any radio antenna would have gone on it. I don't know, Mr. Sullivan, if you know if there's any lightning rods on this tower, if you're aware of.
I'm not aware of any lightning rods, but I'm sure that the metal tank in the ground is well grounded. Mr. Dents could probably agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay. All right, so we've had board comment. Administrative has had their chance to ask questions. Any follow-up, any board comments or questions at this point?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Is there any, in the past, with some of these towers, we've had to deal with screening plantings around the tower. I don't know if this photograph we're looking at is accurate. It doesn't look like there's any there now besides tree growth on one side. I don't know, is that anything that we are concerned with? I don't have an opinion about it one way or another, but I know we've dealt with it sometimes. I guess it's been required aesthetically, but may not be in this situation.
I think it's usually when it's a standalone cell tower, since these are on top of the water tower. I'd assume it's a little different,
Yeah,
especially since it's in the middle of the ball field.
Right.
Right.
Generally, that comes up at the initial application, putting in the initial equipment and wherever, this is just an upgrade to an existing site, so generally, that's not a requirement that they upgrade additionally from what's already there, because the equipment on the bottom is gonna pretty much look the same as it is right now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there are some trees I see that looks like it shield mostly the equipment shed. But as Mr. Dent said, the water tower's been there for decades, so.
And you're replacing existing panels, correct? These are replacing ones that are already there?
Three of them will be
of them
replaced,
replaced.
and then they're adding 3 additional.
Gotcha.
So they're going from a net of 9 to a net of 12.
Okay.
The other question, Mr. Chairman, is what is TOFA's role in this? We approve this tonight, and where is TOFA on this, in this conversation?
TOFA has already granted, under the underlying lease, there was rights, basically they had to consent to it, which they have consented to this installation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
That's it.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion then to close the conditional use hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so then we would be looking for a motion regarding the conditional use application for AT&T Mobility at 207 Austin Drive. I'm assuming it's a relatively straightforward plan. The board members are interested in approving. Is there a motion to approve the co-location, the conditional use for the co-location at 207 Austin Drive for AT&T Mobility?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, Mr. Clark, now we can do 8900 Old Bristol Pike.
You want these back? No.
Sure. Just swap them out.
Yeah.
Keep the clips. The clips are worth money. That's yours. Yeah, this is fine. Sorry.
Yeah, very well worked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so this is also, item 2 is another conditional use hearing, AT&T Mobility. This is for 8900 Old Bristol Pike. This is also an existing tower, and I believe, very much like the previous application, this is largely replacement and upgrading of equipment. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. This is a conditional use hearing. The applicant is New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, doing business as AT&T Mobility. The property is tax parcel number 13-40-45-1, located in the Township of Falls, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This is an application requesting conditional use to permit an upgrade to its facility with the addition of 3 LTE antennas, the installation of a new LTE radio equipment cabinet on the existing concrete pad located at the base of the tower, the replacement of an existing NUSS cabinet for a new TE43 cabinet of substantially the same size, and the installation of remote radio heads and cables to the new LTE antennas so they will operate with the radio equipment and will bring the existing facility up to the 4G standards that are currently located on the monopole located at the tower at 8900 Old Route 13. The applicant is represented by Christopher Schubert Esquire, and if you will open the hearing, Mr. Harvey, I will instruct Mr. Schubert on the policy and procedure of the hearings.
Okay. Is there a motion to open the conditional use hearing for AT&T Mobility, 8900 Old Bristol Pike?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Clark?
Mr. Schubert, you were here for the last hearing,
I was indeed.
and you've heard the instructions regarding how these hearings proceed and the policy and procedure of the township in matters involving co-location.
Yes.
And you have no objection to our court reporter taking the instructions from the first hearing and placing them in this hearing transcript, so I don't need to repeat everything.
Only if you don't have any objections to me incorporating some of the testimony from before into this hearing as well.
Well, I can get away with it, you can't, so.
I have no problem with that. That's good. And with the board's pleasure on that, I do have the same witnesses who testified at the last hearing, Mark Rubin, the radio frequency expert, and also Jim Prokopiak, who is the site acquisition project manager for this site, who oversaw the preparation and filing of the application and the supporting documents. This is a site that's located at 8900 Old Route 13 at the lower end of the township in Town. It's a property that's approximately 12 acres in size, and it's owned by Atlantic Concrete Industries. It's currently used and zoned for industrial purposes, and there's an existing 160-foot monopole tower that's currently on the property. AT&T has a total of 9 antennas currently on that tower at a center line height of 152 feet. And what AT&T is proposing, similar to the last application, is the addition of 3 LTE or 4G antennas to the 9 to bring the total of the antenna count up to 12. AT&T is also proposing to add an LTE cabinet that would house the radio equipment to operate those new antennas, and also swap out an existing cabinet, which is known as a NUS and NUSS cabinet. My understanding is, Mr. Prokopiak might correct me, that's essentially a battery cabinet, and it's going to be switching it out for a TE43. Similar to the last application, we have to establish that we have standing and there's an underlying lease agreement, and Mr. Rubin would testify that there is an existing lease agreement in effect with the underlying property owner, Atlantic Precast Industries, Inc., with the predecessor of New Singular Wireless, which was known as American Cellular Network. That company ultimately became, through succession, New Singular Wireless, doing business as AT&T Mobility. Mr. Rubin would testify that that lease agreement is still in full force and effect and allows AT&T to operate the facility on the property and also to do the required or suggested upgrades. Mr. Rubin would testify that there's an aerial view marked as Applicant's Exhibit A3 that shows the tower with the AT&T antennas that are the second tier down. Mr. Rubin's curriculum vitae hasn't changed. That's marked as Applicant's Exhibit A4. And also the licenses haven't changed from the last application. That's marked as Applicant's Exhibit A5, which allow AT&T to operate its wireless network in this area of the township. Also, a similar exhibit is A6, which is the reason or statement as to why AT&T needs these 4G upgrades on behalf of its network customers, and also to ensure that it continues to supply and afford reliable coverage to its customers. With the addition of these 3 antennas on that existing tower, the RF emissions compliance report, marked as Applicant's Exhibit A7, concludes that there would be no problem in terms of meeting the FCC requirements for compliance. And similar to the last application, the facility, with the addition of the antennas, would still operate at less than 5% of the allowable limit established by the FCC. So we would comply with that requirement under the ordinance. Also, similar to the last application, there was a non-interference letter that was prepared by a radio frequency engineer that was commissioned by AT&T, and that letter concludes that there would be no interference caused by the operation of the AT&T facility, due in part to the fact that AT&T operates at a fixed frequency as established by the FCC. We also have site plans that have been prepared by the project engineer under the direction of Mr. Prokopiak, and following discussion with the Planning Commission at its December 19 meeting, there were some revisions that were made to the site plans that were originally filed with the application. Those revisions are last dated January 13. Well, this says of 2011, but I'm sure that that's meant 2012. And essentially what was added was, again, an out-boundary site plan that shows the entire property and the facility in relation to the boundary of the property. In addition, the Planning Commission wanted the off-street parking spaces identified on the property, and they have also been added to the plan as well. We have also been in receipt of the Township Engineer's review letter of December 19, which, aside from the exhibits that were noted in tonight's presentation and offered up as part of the applicant's presentation of the case, any other of the open conditions, such as the insurance, would be handled as a condition of any approval that this board might see fit to grant, and AT&T would be willing to comply with any of those conditions that would be referenced in Mr. Sullivan's review letter. That essentially would conclude my presentation and summary of the witness's testimony. Mr. Rubin, Mr. Prokopiak, you probably have to be sworn for the purposes of this hearing.
No, they're previously sworn, they're
Great.
fine.
You've been present when I've presented to this board a summary of what your testimony would be. Is there anything that you would change or add to that summary of your testimony?
No.
And you would adopt that summary of your testimony as your own?
Yes, I would.
Okay, at this point, I have no further questions of the witnesses.
Okay. Well, we'll, just like last time, it's like Groundhog Day here, just deja vu. Mr. Galloway, comments or questions?
No questions.
Mr. Snipes?
The height of the tower, again, I missed whether you said that this addition would be below the existing.
It would be below. The height of the tower is 160 feet. The current center line height of the antennas is 152. With the added height, I think we would go up to 154. It would still be below the top.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
No questions or comments.
Mr. Rocco?
No.
Okay. No, and I don't have any either. Mr. Clark?
No questions.
Mr. Sullivan?
No questions.
Okay. Any public comment needed? See one hand. Mr. Obert?
Gallows Obert again from Perilous Hills. Maybe I should have asked this question back on item 1, but it can pertain to item 1 and item 2. The Austin Drive is property that is belonged by the Water Authority or by Falls Township?
Water Authority.
TOFA.
Pardon?
Water Authority.
Water Authority. Now, if they put these things on this tower, there's a fee involved. Can you tell me how much the fee is and who gets it, the township or the Water Authority?
Mr.
Yeah.
Harvey, for the purposes of this hearing, with all due respect to Mr. Obert, these questions pertain to the previous hearing, which has
Right.
been closed. This is not the same as public comment. There are certain rules of evidence that should be followed here. It's not a relevant question for the application that's at hand.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, Mr. Clark's right. Any questions you have to be.
When do you want me to come back with these
specific.
questions?
Well, you could actually just off microphone. You could probably ask Mr. Prokopiak, and he could probably give you an input.
I don't hear you too well.
I said
These things are not working,
All
and
right. Well,
so bear with me.
all right. But what I'm saying is, you can't. The questions you're asking don't apply to this particular site because you're asking about the hearing we just had on Austin Drive. Do you have a question about this particular site on Old Bristol Pike?
This site,
Yes. Do you have any questions on that site?
okay, this site, who owns this site? Township?
No, it's Atlantic Concrete, I believe. Is that right? Correct?
So they get paid a fee.
They are most likely paid a rental, yes.
So if I could get a tower on my property, I'd get paid a fee.
Theoretically, yes.
And then I don't have to pay you guys, huh? That's for sure, okay. So anybody that gets a tower gets paid a fee. That's income.
That's usually the way it works, yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't think most people know that. That's for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? See no hands. Okay. And board comment, no follow-up questions or comments?
None.
Okay.
I'll make a quick comment that it's not, in the lease agreement, we don't know exactly how much anybody's getting paid for the fee is charged.
Right.
That's a negotiation between whoever owns the tower and AT&T.
Right. So it's a private Mr. Dents is right. It's a private transaction where the township doesn't get involved in. All right. Okay, if we have no other comments or questions, is there a motion to close the conditional use hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Is there a motion then to approve the conditional use hearing for the co-location and upgrade of the AT&T mobility equipment at 8900 Old Bristol Pike?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much, John.
Lots of recycling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really wanted that back, right?
All right, the next item on our agenda is consider application by ACT Engineers for work on Biles Island. As Township hopefully is pretty aware, there's been work ongoing for some time now to begin readying Biles Island. This is a piece of property the Township is going to become the owner of from Waste Management for the grand total of $1. It's going to add a tremendous amount of access to the river, as well as a lot of potential for recreation and other activities. There is a part of Biles Island that the Township could begin using very soon, even this year, an area that has been finished with development by Waste Management for some time now. It's naturalized, it's grown back into very much a natural state, and it could be used very easily. ACT Engineers was the firm that was hired by the Township a few years ago to do the work for Biles. They have a long record of work with this kind of project, and they have come across some grant opportunities that the Township could take advantage of to help pay for a lot of the work. And so I know Mr. Eric Rosina is here from ACT, and I'll turn it over to him. Mr. Gray, I stole some of your thunder there. I'm sorry.
No, that's
All right. But let Mr. Rosina explain exactly what kind of work they're proposing to do, and the Township supervisors have in front of them their proposal as well as the cost of that proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome Mr. Rocco and Mr. Galloway to the board. We've had a great opportunity to work with Falls Township, and you guys have a great asset here that we're looking forward to realizing in the near future. Just a matter of quick review, the board approved a master plan for Biles Island back in October of 2011, and that identified 4 main goals for the project. One was a public connection to Biles Island. One was a public connection to the river, and one was to provide regional trail connections, and one was to provide business and commercial connections, and that was going to center on partnership opportunities that may exist and identifying those. The proposal before you tonight is to begin investigating and building those partnerships for the project. The current opportunity that's in front of us that has the deadline that we're concerned with, and the reason we're here tonight, is with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. DCNR has a grant opportunity that opens up each year beginning in January and closes the beginning of April. That is their window to accept applications. They have multiple forms, multiple grants that are available. They center on land use, land and water conservation, recreational trails, planning, land acquisition, partnership development, and development of the property itself. We think Falls is in a unique position at this point in time with the goals that DCNR has laid out for 2012. That Biles Island is a very, very close match, and how these things are scored, everything in the project. DCNR evaluates the project in the application and takes rates them, and then that's a competitive process statewide, and those funds become available based on highest ranking, and they work their way down. In preliminary conversations, DCNR has informed us that yes, although the state budget is in flux, they do have money. One of the challenges that they're having right now is finding communities that have an available match to those grants. And those matches can take multiple forms. That can take land value matches, that can take existing work that's been that's brought to the project. Well, let me back up one step there. But the only match that's allowed is during the period that the application is for. So you have to be in the process in order for the dollars to take effect. And what we're trying to do is put together the partnerships early on here to get the team together and build those partnerships now. So that's what the proposal is in front of you. And could it be less than that proposal? Yeah, we build the town on time and materials basis. And that's proposed here as well. It's got to be what it takes to get all the players to the right table.
Okay. And for the record, so I left out the amount just basically to do this work. You're talking about preparing for the grant and like you said, bringing all the players to the table and organizing all that you're asking for a budget not to exceed $12,500.
Correct.
Okay. All right. All right, I'll turn to the board for comments and questions. Mr. Galloway.
Yeah, just one question. What kind of dollar amount what kind of things typically would they give in the grant?
Grants have gone, the typical grant goes to $250,000. They have gone over that for significant projects. I can tell you that when we said 526 acres, their eyes lit up, and that's more a significant project. Now, what does that mean? I don't know yet, but that's in the realm of what they normally give out. That's what they're going with a cap of 250, generally speaking.
So we're pursuing a substantial amount of money.
Correct.
So the $12,500 would be sounds like a very good investment.
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Snipes.
Yes, it'd be great to have a little clarification on. You said the upper amount is 250,000. So I'm curious, maybe I missed it somewhere. Are we applying for monies to fund our sort of phase 1 opening of this year, or are we applying for a bigger grant to go over several years? Or
that's what we're looking at right now. We need to have some discussions with them very early on. We want the dollars that were spent for phase 1 to be eligible dollars for matching. Now whether, and this is part of talking with DCNR, whether they think it's best to go after planning dollars for possibly phase 2 and doing some of the studies that need to be done to implement work further down the road, or whether they feel that, no, this is significant enough just in phase 1A that we're going to match it there. We need to work out those details. That's why I said there's multiple grants within the process, and identifying which is the best target with them is part of the process.
So how will the township residents and township board be involved in making that decision about what is it we're looking at phase 1 or possibly phase 2 in terms of how much money we're applying for?
You will see an application come back here that you'll need to execute, and the board would need to execute to file, and that decision we'll be making with the team here during the process.
If everything goes sort of according to plan, how quickly could an application be made, do you think? Or what would be the timeline for an application?
The applications close, the closing date for the application is April 4th.
Okay, that's pretty quick.
I think it's the 4th. So it would be before that. You'd see us in the very near future.
And all the requirements.
If you say go, things start almost tomorrow.
And all the requirements we'd have to do that application could be done by that point?
Yes. We're a good step ahead of the game with the master plan in place that we did last year. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ground has already been covered on that.
Okay, there's one other question I have, but I forget it for now, so maybe I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Dents?
Not at this time. Mine have been answered so far, but I'm sure I'll find some more.
That's fine. Mr. Rocco?
So these grants become available every year around this time?
These grants are available every year. You can go back more than once. And that's part of the planning and the structuring of the grant process and why we need to work with DCNR. They may say, fund this now, come back to us next year for the planning or the construction of phase 2. You can go back multiple times. There's a lot of townships that do that. And that's part of the other piece that's in this 12.5 is trying to build the outside partnerships because it's a 50% match. So we're trying to build partnerships on multiple levels to fund that.
And at this time, do we own the property? Has the transaction been finalized?
We're in negotiations with Waste Management on the process of doing that. It's essentially, a matter of possibly dividing the land, and then the township would take ownership for, however much the prorated, 33 cents or whatever it was worth.
Right. Does that need to be done before submitting the grant request?
The property needs to be under control. That can be a lease or it could be a purchase at that point. I mean, that it can be under agreement because some of the grants that DCNR offers are actually for land acquisition. So they understand that you may not own, but you may be in process.
Right. So are we going to be able to do that in time?
And I think even with the agreement we have in place, the 2005 agreement that was negotiated by myself and Mr. Snipes and Mr. Prokopiak, I think that's already sort of legally binding, so that might be enough, correct?
We believe that the agreement that allows us the option of purchasing the property for $1 satisfies the DCNR requirements. The reason we're talking to Waste Management about possibly buying a portion of the property early involves some open space funds that may become available to us. The open space funds require us to own the property, not just have an option on it. But for the purpose of these grants, it's our opinion that the option that we have on it satisfies it.
Okay.
Also, you mentioned Phase 1A. Is there a 1B as well? I'm not 100% clear on.
There is,
Okay.
and I didn't bring the master plan here with me tonight with the presentations that we did last year. However, we can certainly get that to you. Phase 1A operates on the northern tip of the island, what has been restored by Waste Management as a habitat area, and the establishing access to that from the public. Or by the public, and trails around that is Phase 1A.
Okay. And do we have a cost for Phase 1A? Have we done an analysis on cost?
At this point in time, the designs that have been done are conceptual. To get hard costs, we'd have to get into full design.
Right. And it's very much, even with the concept plan, it's something that we can add and take away. I think probably the most substantial cost would be just getting the access and working on an access. Because essentially everything else is, as Mr. Rosina said, it's already a wildlife habitat, so putting a few benches around and putting up a few trash cans and some signage and probably fencing off the area to separate it, would be the costs.
Correct.
Right. I would think our preference would be to get the grant for 1A. I think you mentioned that it may be applied to Phase 2, which, I don't know when that, when that vision is, but.
Yeah, and that would be part of the process in looking through the funding availability with DCNR and with the township and with other open space monies that may become available and partnerships that we build. I mean, some of that is dependent on all of that, and also with Waste's operations at the facility. Phase 1A is like I said, the northern extent of the island, and Waste has indicated at this point that they are complete with that section of the island, so we at least have access to that area.
And part of the fee, it says here, is it's going to cover the coordination that's going to take place between ourselves and the state, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, did we, I don't remember whether we had in our budget, we budgeted anything in 2012 for Phase 1A, I guess we'll call it. Did we budget anything for trails or access, or I don't think we did.
I don't believe we did.
Okay. So, in other words, the granting, we want to move forward with that. The grant's going to be crucial for that.
Sure.
If it's approved in April, is it a reimbursement grant or a grant monies will come to us that we can then use to do the project, or we have to do it first?
The grant application window ends in April. They take that, rate it, put it in their budget. Their budget gets approved in July.
Oh,
so
okay.
those grants don't actually get announced until late fourth quarter, early first quarter of 2012, 2013. So those grants are coming back. Depends on if you've spent the money, you spent the matching grant money or not, whether it's a reimbursable or whether they are funding. It depends on your timeline spending it.
So we could expend some money if we felt we were able to this year as a township to do this, and then the grant would be in the form of reimbursement.
Correct, and that's why we want to get this started now. Because until we know that the application window is open, the monies that are expended don't necessarily count towards your match.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, and just to clarify, we're not voting on whether we're doing 1A, we're just voting on the
Right, on
on
the
the grant,
search for a
yeah,
grant.
the search
yeah.
for money.
The
Got it.
search for grants
And once
and
obviously,
partnerships.
we can move on from there depending on what we want to do. Okay? Any other board comment or questions?
Just, I'll say, we had a chance to visit the area we're calling 1A, the restored habitat area, and it really is beautiful. I sort of thought, oh, sure, you know, it's probably pretty rough, but the day we were there, I think some boats had actually come in from the river over an area that is sort of broken through on high tide, I guess, and you felt like you could have been in the middle of the Adirondacks somewhere. It was really beautiful. So this is really a potential treasure for the township in terms of recreation and outdoor activities. So I think this is money well spent to see whether there's money from the state that can help us to do this.
Yeah, the area in question, I mean, the property is designed, or was originally designed as a dredge facility, and the berms around the northern end of the island are set at the 50-year flood elevation, meaning, which the long and short of that is the infrastructure of the trails is pretty much existing. So it's a matter of clearing and a matter of surfaces. So it's not a lot of, cutting through a lot of trees. It's mostly done. It's a matter of improving what's already there and making that asset available to the public.
Okay. All right, any public comment? Seeing a few hands. We've got a few hands, all right. Motion to open public comment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Dell?
Andrew Dell, Falls Township. As you guys know, I'm not in favor of this recreation facility that we don't need. Nothing against the ACT people. They did a nice job on the presentation, but during the open house here, there was like maybe a dozen people. I think this is something you guys got to put before all the taxpayers of Falls Township. Maybe during the election, maybe a question on the voting machines is, hey, do you want this park? Because I don't want to be rushed into getting this possible $250,000 that probably won't materialize. Maybe some of it will, but that probably won't even cover the cost of putting a fence across this property. It's a drop in the bucket for anyone who hasn't been down to Biles Island to know the size of that facility. It's huge, and $250,000 sounds like a lot of money. It is, but compared to the size of that property and what has to be done to make this place beautiful, and it can be made beautiful, but do we need to make it beautiful right now? We have a beautiful park. We can improve the park we have. I know there's going to be bird watchers going to this Biles Island, but how many people have you seen watching birds down our existing park? I don't think that they're going to flock in by the hundreds of thousands to go down to Biles Island to look at birds. And I don't want to see us rushing this because the same date's going to show up next year. We can go for it next year. I think we should go in a little slower because you guys are talking about using our fund that we have, obviously most of the money from waste management. I don't want to waste it on a park that I'm not saying won't be used, but we don't need at this point in time, especially the way the economy is, the way everything's going. I don't think this is a wise investment because I foresee it spending tens of millions of dollars down there. If you end up doing the final plan or even a couple phases that needs to be done, I just don't see it paying off for this township. I see it as a giant money pit. And again, I'm not saying it can't be made into a gorgeous site. It is a nice property, but I don't believe we should be spending this kind of money or being rushed in to spending this money now. And example is the sidewalk study we did on New Falls Road. $50,000 to study to see if we could put in sidewalks. Pointless. Didn't need sidewalks, but there's $50,000 that evaporated. This project is going to make that look like a walk in the park. We're going to be millions is going to evaporate, and I really don't think it's worth the effort right now. I think we have a plan. You have an idea what we could use this property for. Splitting this property in half with a fence and wasting money on that. I just don't see it right now in the economic times we're in right now. Waste Management's tipping fees, I'm sure, are down because I'm sure they're not getting the construction debris in, so we don't make as much money. Am I correct on that? We're not getting the standard amount of money we've been getting?
I think the rates are down over the past couple of years, I think, yeah.
I mean, are they down substantial, or are they just down a small percentage?
They're pretty steady. I mean, they've been at the same clip for the last few years.
Because we were getting about $50,000 a day.
I'm not sure the
Do we have a
exact
day- I don't know if we
amount.
have a daily
At
breakdown.
10,000 tons. Does it 10,000 tons a day is what the limit is, and then jumps to 5,000?
No.
That could be per land, is that per landfill you're thinking of, or, because obviously there's multiple landfills in operation.
Yeah, in total.
In total? It might be, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. But the money we're receiving in has shrunk. It might take 1, 2, 3 years for the housing to pick up and construction to pick up, and then we're going to be back to generating the kind of income that we've been used to, putting the money away. But this project, I would say put it in front of the people, because I think just a small amount of people are aware of the size of this project and what it can actually turn into. Carving trails down there, I don't have a problem with putting in a few benches if people want to utilize the property, but once you go down that road and start turning this into a whole nother park, the money spent down there could be endless, and maintenance on this property could be endless, and the liability we take on down that property substantial. And you have to dredge out the river to actually gain access, unless you're in a flat bottom boat or maybe a small rowboat. You need to get actual boats into this area. You have to dredge the river all the way down there, and these are all things that aren't going to cost $100,000 or $200,000. These are millions of dollars that we have to spend. So I just caution you to go slow and don't be pressured into doing this now, because we have 60 days to hook up with the DCNR to get this money. We can do it next year, and we don't have to rush any negotiations with whatever we're doing with Waste Management for this property. Just move slow and keep that in mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Mariani?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, there are no negotiations with Waste Management for this property. They have to sell it to us for
Right.
$1. All we are doing right now is possibly taking a portion of the property before the entire property is ready. So there's no additional negotiations going on.
Right. Yes.
Okay, we've reviewed this plan before, and I certainly have, and I've spoken about this plan before, and here's my concerns, that I don't think we properly assessed the need for this kind of expenditure. What do we need it for? I believe we're going off again, creating another service, and we're creating another recreation without providing funds to maintain it. I've heard nothing about funds to maintain it after it's established. I'm listening to matching funds. That scares me to death, especially in the amounts that the gentleman was mentioning. This entire spending adventure doesn't have limitations as a business does. It's unlike a business. There's no profit motivation. The whole thing. There are other motivations, I'm sure, and as a matter of fact, they've been taking center stage lately. Now, without any means of financial support to maintain this thing, I think it's absolutely reckless spending. It's like taking money and throwing it away. I think what you're going to do here is create a gargantuan, crushing burden on the future residents of Fall Township. You're not going to be able to maintain this. So my question to you is, if you want to proceed, I say drop it right now. Forget about it. How do you plan to support the project? That's my question. I know Mr. Snipes favors these type of ventures, and with good intentions, Mr. Snipes. I'm not picking on you, but good grief. How are you going to support this? Every single project that you get into has to be maintained. After the initial investment, where does the money come from? You're talking about putting another boat ramp down there. We already have access to the river. We could accommodate the 6th Fleet, and you want to go build more. So My question is, how do you plan to support this project? I would like to have an answer.
Well, I think with your comments, I think Mr. Dell's comments, we're getting confused in terms of what the concept plan talked about. The concept plan that was presented that the board adopted is really a plan that looked at the long-term, and emphasis on the word long-term use of that site. The idea of a boat ramp, the idea of even baseball fields, soccer fields, some other kinds of things. We're talking 15, 20 years down the line. In essence, the site we're looking at now is a very small part of Biles Island that essentially needs very little, if any, maintenance to this point. You know, as Mr. Rosina said, it's essentially, their berms already are on the outside of this perimeter, the perimeter of this particular part of the island. They're already worn down into paths and trails because Waste Management routinely has vehicles that go around and patrol the area. They're not talking about putting any boat ramp, not talking about putting in any kind of you know, kind of facilities other
How
than
long-term you were.
well,
The plans
but
I
again,
reviewed-
long-term's 15 to 20 years down the road.
But what I'm
So-
saying is, I don't even want you to get involved with this thing.
I know.
Because I can see it coming, and I'm telling you, as Mr. Snipes again says, there is an end point to the money that we have coming in, and he's absolutely right. What are you going to do then? Where's the money going to come to? I'm telling you, will people like it? Of course. Who's going to support it? Think about it. Think hard about it. This is something we don't need. Please, think about it.
Okay.
And thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kinney?
Rolling County Falls Township. What the two gentlemen said is absolutely correct. And like I always said, put it on the ballot. I think if you're going to do anything, the sports, like we did the boat ramp, spent $1 million. This year, what we take in, a couple $1,000? It's going to take a long time to get that $1 million back. This project is gigantic. You put a casino and a hotel down there, it starts to pay for stuff. So when Waste Management says goodbye, we got money coming in from the casino. We don't have to buy the casino. Believe me, there's plenty of them guys out there who's willing to put something like that down there. I have never been down there, but I'm told it's a gigantic piece of property, and if it is, it'd be ideal for a casino and a hotel. Like Ben Salem, Langhorne, Bristol, they're all getting paid by the one down in Ben Salem. This would be practically just us and maybe Morrisville. So think about it, gentlemen. Bringing the money in. We're shoving a lot of it out. Let's bring some of it in again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Robert?
Good evening again, gentlemen. Carlos Herbert. Today I came in possession of a new book out. It's called the Pennsylvania 2011 and 12 Grant and Resource Directory. Okay, put out by the House Democrats Caucus. And this tells you all the grant programs that are available. There's an awful lot of money out there. Okay, one of the things I understand is we don't own that Biles Island, is that correct?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Why are we spending money looking to develop it if we don't loan it? When Waste Management may say, we're going to keep it.
They can't.
They can't?
No.
They can do whatever they want.
No, they can't.
They took over the steel mill, okay, or the dump down there. They took over Biles, or Money Island, which I used to camp on. They've gotten rid of the swamplands back there and so forth. And according to this thing, you can't do anything as far as getting grant money until you have all the plans in place. Is that correct? Or you don't know? I don't think you know. But I would strongly suggest that every one of you get a copy of this. Okay, it comes from Mr. John Galloway's office. Okay, and take a look at it. It's the biggest bunch of gobbledygook you've ever read in your life. It's repeat, 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 repeat. You guys laugh. You sit down sometime at breakfast and start out on page 1, and by the time you get to page 15, you'll be your head will be numb. Now, Biles Island used to be an island. It now has 6 lakes in it. Waste Management has taken all the dirt and all the stone they want and left us with 6 puddles. Maybe we ought to rename the island to 6 puddles instead of thing. Okay? You're going to turn Biles Island into a nature preserve, a bird watching place. I haven't seen any bird watchers around here in 35, 40 years. Might be 1 or 2. But not here. You go down the shore, there might be a place. Somebody must have an awful lot of money, and I agree with those gentlemen. I think you're throwing money after a bad scenario for Biles Island. But get a hold of this book and start reading it, gentlemen, before you go any further. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment needed? See one hand? Mr. Prokopiak?
Evening, gentlemen. Jim Prokopiak, Falls Township. My just question, the grant just goes for state grants, is that correct?
What we're actually,
what you're talking about now?
what we're looking to do, what we're asking ACT to do is basically pursue grant money, and most of that is through DCNR.
Okay, so this would include federal money, county money, and state money as well? All
Yeah,
included in this
they're
as well?
looking for partners in public, not only just grant money, but also looking for private companies that might be willing to sort of get involved in a project like this. Yes.
It sounds like a good deal for $12,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? See no hands. Or motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. So again, the proposal we have from ACT is to have them go out and essentially start looking for money for work on Biles Island, coordinating a lot of it with DCNR and other entities and agencies, private and public, looking for money that might be out there for the township to use for work on this site. The amount not to exceed $12,500. Any final comments or questions from board members?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, given the comments people gave tonight, we don't know what we may be thinking of doing long term. We've had some concept plans, some of them, as you say, maybe 15 or 20 years in the future. But the restored area of the island really is ready for us to use now if we have access to it and if the public is protected from any other activities on the island. Having been down there, I believe that it would be a service to our residents and another outlet for outdoor activities for people if we can figure out a way to get them to an area that's already been conditioned. There's really not a lot of expenditure, I don't think. As was pointed out, the trails are already made, and you know, we don't even have to decide to put benches in there. They could be walking trails. So I don't think that it's that much of an expenditure for us. There was a time when people felt as we were building the community park that it was a terrible waste of money, that no one would ever go there, that it wouldn't be used. And now, you know, on a beautiful weekend, you can't find a parking spot. It's one of the most popular places in the township. I think everybody agrees that no matter where you come down in terms of how we should spend our money. So at this point, although I hear the concerns, and we're not committing ourselves to a several million-dollar project, we're talking about spending $12,000 to maybe get a nice chunk of money from the state to help us at least open what already exists that residents could use on a piece of property that is going to come to the township. We've signed this agreement with Waste Management. They can't just back out of it. So this is going to be our property, and I think it behooves us to figure out a way to have it be of use for township residents as quickly as we can in the area that's been restored and safe for the public to use. So I'm in favor of it. The other decisions down the road about how much we decide to spend on any other project, if at all, those are decisions down the road. So that's what I'd say for now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Chair will entertain a motion at this point regarding the master plan implementation grant program from ACT Engineers. Board members have the memo in front of them.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve expenditure of not to exceed $12,500 to ACT Engineers for, see, how shall I word this, for their DCNR grant program. Yeah.
Seconded.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marzina. Okay, item 4 on our agenda is consider adopting the Bucks County 2011 Hazard Mitigation Plan. Mr. Gray.
A resolution for the township to adopt the Bucks County 2011 Hazard Mitigation Plan has been secured. This plan has been developed by the Bucks County Emergency Management Agency and the Planning Commission. The board is asked to consider this resolution tonight. Also, Mr. Art Feltus from the Bucks County is here as well.
Okay.
Evening, Supervisors.
Mr. Feltus, how are you?
Pretty good. Let me try to give you the quick and dirty on this. In the late 1990s, there were a series of floods nationally, and basically the federal government said, we're sick and tired of paying to fix the same piece of property that continually floods over and over and over again. So the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires municipalities to have a hazard mitigation plan. And FEMA, our first hazard mitigation plan, started in 2005. I believe it was finally ratified in 2006. They want it reviewed and updated every 5 years. Ours expired in the summer of last year while we were having Baker, a qualified consulting company, develop the new plan. The plan was developed with every municipality in Bucks County. It looked at the problems in Bucks County. It examined where we needed to focus, and based on those meetings with all the municipalities, we came up with a series of actions. Falls Township is signed up for 3 of those actions. If you're part of the National Flood Insurance Program, you have to have an NFIP action. You have to sign up for one of those. I apologize that the executive summary that was sent to you was so lengthy, but I wanted to show you all the actions, not just the 3 that you guys were in. The NFIP action was collect detailed information on properties using the all hazard mitigation tool. Basically, as we looked at our first plan, and it really didn't change that much in that 5 years, we noticed there was a problem where a lot of properties we weren't able to identify base elevation, flood elevation. It was tough to calculate what the impact of the, I'm sorry, they changed the terminology on it, the 1% flood. Some people would know it as the 100-year flood. It's only supposed to happen once every 100 years. They renamed it the 1% flood. Why? I don't know, because they seem to be happening a little bit more frequently than 1 out of every 100 years. So collect the detailed information. The county is going to be assisting municipalities. A majority of the NFIP communities are signed up on that action. So that was the first one where you guys were signed up. The second one, oh man, 2-pager. Flip back here. Is evaluate, implement, and perform mitigation projects identified in this and other planning mechanisms, including acquisition, elevation, foundation, and building stabilization and other mitigation methods. What does that mean? That's basically the catch-all, because FEMA's saying if you're going to apply for disaster money, you have to have something in your plan to work towards mitigating that disaster, that possibility. So that's the catch-all. In fact, we even tweaked the language a little bit in the summer after we had that earthquake, so we could technically make that action apply to earthquake damage if there was substantial enough earthquake damage. But again, the first word is evaluate on that action. If you say on the net sum, we don't have the money to engage in this type of activity. You've done your due diligence under that action. And the last action that Falls Township is signed up for is evaluate and consider implementing activities to secure Firewise designation. Essentially what that is outreach to your residents to educate them about clearing brush, about fire hazards, about minimizing the effects of some of those fire hazards. And partly that was identified because there have been some substantial fires over the life of this plan, even going back about, I believe we went back to about 1925 to evaluate some of these hazards. And there were some substantial fires that even involved loss of life, and that's one reason that you were in that category. If you guys do approve the hazard mitigation plan this evening, what will happen is I will email that resolution to the proper people at FEMA and PEMA and copy the township on that. And then within about 2 months, you will receive a letter from FEMA saying you're eligible for that. We did run into one scenario since our plan lapsed where one municipality, I believe bordering this one, had applied for a severe repetitive loss funding from FEMA that may very well be denied because they did not have an approved plan in place at the time of application. Hopefully they'll bend a little bit on that, but it's a possibility. That's one reason that these plans are important. If you've had damage from Lee and Irene, and I know there was some, FEMA will go through the process, they will evaluate applications, they will even approve applications, but what they were telling me is they will not be issuing checks until an approved plan is in place.
All right, so essentially, with obviously we had the hurricane back in the fall, and well, of course, the snowstorms last year, and et cetera. Approving this resolution tonight would essentially allow us to apply for money for reimbursement or for, I guess, disaster funding if those kinds of things affect us. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway?
No comments.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
Yeah, what would be the reason why we wouldn't approve it? Why would a township or municipality not approve this?
That's a very, very good question. Option B is you could develop your own plan. I've given you a 40-page executive summary. Our plan is over 400 pages. FEMA and PEMA, Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, are pushing for an all hazards plan. If a township were to do it itself, I couldn't imagine them doing it for less than like a 300-page report and at an expense of at least 15 grand. If you were extremely wealthy and wanted to cover all the flood damage yourself or didn't think there was ever going to be fire, flood, pestilence, earthquakes, yeah, you might not have to pass one of these. I've had the argument, government stay out of my business from local government. I don't know. Essentially, any of the actions are so extremely low cost and low time commitment. I mean, it's just a matter of being at a few meetings, doing a little bit of legwork that I can't see. I really honestly wouldn't understand why you wouldn't want the insurance of being able to apply to FEMA for the money.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, any public comment needed? See no hands. Mr. Gray, this will be resolution 12-06. Okay, so board members have before them resolution 1206, which would be adopting the Bucks County 2011 Hazard Mitigation Plan. No comments or questions. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2012-06, Township of Falls, County of Bucks, resolution for adopting the Bucks County 2011 Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fells. Appreciate it. All right, item 5 is consider purchasing 4 vehicles. One for code enforcement, one for fire marshal's office, one for park and recreation, one for public works. Mr. Gray?
Yes, 4 township departments have requested in their budget a purchase of a new vehicle for their respective department. As mentioned, they are the Park and Rec, Code Enforcement, Fire Marshal, and Public Works. All vehicles are from an approved vendor on the CoStar's list. At this time, the board is asked to consider the purchase of each vehicle. The first vehicle is for the Code Enforcement Department. The vendor is Hondru Fleet. It is the purchase of a 2012 Chevy Colorado four-wheel drive extension cab in the amount of $19,871.29. Again, this is from the CoStar's listing, contract number 25-012, and again, the amount is included in the 2012 budget. The board is asked to consider the purchase of this vehicle.
Okay. All right, I see Mr. Bennett's here from Code Enforcement, so if board members have questions regarding the purchase of the vehicle, he's here to answer any questions. Mr. Galloway?
None at this time.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
None.
Okay, I have none. Any public comment needed? See no hands. No important hands anyway. So, all right, is there a motion then to approve the purchase of the 2012 Chevrolet Colorado four-wheel drive extension cab pickup truck in the amount of $19,871.29?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
The second vehicle is for the Fire Marshal's office. Township did receive a memo from Rich DiPolito requesting the purchase of a new F-250 to replace an existing 1999 F-250, which currently has about 90,000 miles on it. This new vehicle will be used to pull the smoke trailer, among other duties as well, and the older vehicle will stay in the fleet and become the emergency management vehicle. This particular vehicle is from Warnock. Again, this is on the CoStar's listing. Total purchase amount is $27,110.84.
Okay. All right. And again, Mr. Fire Marshal, or Rich DiPolito, our Fire Marshal, is here to answer questions regarding the purchase of his vehicle. Much more expensive than the Code Enforcement vehicle, I noticed.
Almost $10,000 more.
So, comments or questions? Mr. Galloway?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
Looks like it's replacing a 1999, so it sounds like it's about time.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
Yeah, it's going to replace an existing vehicle. How much use will the existing vehicle get as an emergency fleet vehicle? How much use will it get the old vehicle?
How much use will the old one get?
Yeah.
Rich, you're going to need to go to the podium.
It's used as a
Let's keep talking.
It's used as a spare vehicle when one goes down, so it's used,
Okay.
seems like we always have something in for inspection or in that sense. And it will be used in the floods and snow, those kind of emergencies. It'll become the emergency management vehicle. Has too many miles on it to run every day, all day. It's just starting to show its age, but it would be sufficient for that.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. I think you're good. Yeah. Any public comment needed? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion then to purchase the Ford F-250 for the Fire Marshal's office in the amount of $27,110.84?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Next item is a vehicle for the Park and Rec Department. Bill Reese, Director of Park and Recreation, has requested the board consider the purchase of a 2012 Chevy Colorado small truck. This would be from Hondru Fleet. Dollar amount is $17,927.72. The board is asked to consider this purchase.
Okay, Mr. Reese is here, Park and Rec Director. If he has questions. Mr. Galloway?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
We had budgeted 18,000, so this is just under that, so seems good. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
None.
Okay, and I have non-public comment needed? No? Okay. right, is there a motion to purchase the Chevy Colorado truck for the Park and Recs Department in the amount of $17,927.72?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
The final vehicle is for the Public Works Department. Public Works Foreman Joe Arneo has submitted a memo requesting the purchase of a 2012 Chevy Silverado 1500 that is a four-wheel drive regular cab in the amount of $22,997.70. This is also from Hondru Fleet. Again, this is from the CoStar's listing, contract 25-012. Board is asked to consider this purchase.
Okay, see Chevrolet is getting a lot of business from us. We're single-handedly putting GM back on top, I guess. All right, comments or questions? Mr. Arneo is not here this evening, but comments or questions Mr. Gray, I'm sure, could answer. Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For all these vehicles, Mr. Gray, about how often would we estimate that we would replace these vehicles? I don't know how the vehicles that these are replacing, I don't know how long they have been in the fleet, but approximately more or less.
Probably, I would say about 10 years.
About 10 years.
We should get to about 10 years out of these vehicles.
Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
No questions.
Mr. Rocco?
I have none.
Comments from the public? See no hands? Is there a motion to purchase the 2012 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 for the Public Works Department, the amount of $22,997.70?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this evening. Item number 6, consider the LEAPS software program for the police department. Mr. Gray.
Sergeant Sven Boschman from Falls Township Police Department has submitted a request for the board to consider regarding the LEAPS software implementation. The software will provide training, report scheduling, and other capabilities. In addition, other departments may be able to utilize the software as well. Cost of the software is $7,000. The board is asked to consider this purchase. In addition, Sergeant Boschman is here in case the board has any questions.
Okay. Sergeant, I know you've done a lot of work on this, and you're sort of the point man for computers and software in the police department. And I know I had a chance to sit down with you and talk a little bit about what this program is, but just for the public and for the board members and public information, just give us a rundown on what the cost breakdown is, the purpose of this software, why we need it.
Absolutely. One of our areas, this is an accreditation year, being the police department, one of the areas lacking is the FTO program. FTO program is we're an FTO officer, field training officer. When we bring somebody new on, they actually go through a whole program that lasts a few months. Right now, it's in about a 3-inch binder, and every day they have to fill out information on it. I'll back up a little bit. With this program that we're speaking about, LEAPS actually stands for Law Enforcement Automated Personnel System. The company itself, CopLogic, is supported, started 7.5 years ago. It actually started being an online reporting system for citizens that can actually go online, make a report for theft from vehicle, an accident, things of that nature. In fact, I just found out today Ben Salem is actually looking at their premier package right now of that actual program. As far as how many agencies they have approximately 300 agencies in North America and Canada right now on board. The LEAPS program is one of their newer programs in the last year. What they're providing us right now is actually importing not only our policies, our procedures, our whole learning system, field training program within a online, it's a program in essence, but as far as documents, all of our documents are going to be imported in there. It eliminates the possibility of lost documents. It gives daily observation reports, built-in notifications, sets up and reminds both the officer, the new training officer, and the FTO as well if there's anything that they're missing. as far as what their training goes. Give you a little bit more insight. I can go on for probably an hour with what they do. But within the field training program itself, it's pretty intense. They got to cover every type of call from not abandoned 911s to I'll even give you a burglary in progresses. There's certain protocols that we need to do. What they're doing for us is they're built the system into our CAD, our computer-aided dispatch system. So it actually sends red flags to the field training officer where the individual officers may be lacking or they want them to respond to. So they can actually direct that officer, the new officer, to go to that area. Along with that, daily they'll have evaluations done on them by the field training officer, and allows us as administration to take a look at that and find out how the actual individual new recruit's doing. Being a tenured employee after the year, it's kind of hard to get rid of somebody after that, and when you bring in somebody new in the police department, that evaluation is very, very, very important. So it shows and documents from our aspect of where the person has deficits or where they're actually excelling in. It also sets up their schedule. I just talked to Jared Tivnan today, and he actually, who's my contact with this company, he actually said they're actually throwing in a LEAPS 4 employee. It actually tells you when the individual person needs, the training's going to expire, and it'll give you the costs associated with that if need be. Right now, because it's a new system, the $7,000 is actually broken up into two sections. We started off at $10,000 and we negotiated. The first 20 departments that jump on board are basically going to get every kind of user you want. So I'm looking to add on every officer within the police department, every new officer. We got crossing guards that need training, even our park security guards that need training. We build them into the system, and it's actually kind of like I guess you'd call it a Facebook, if I'm allowed to say that, for online, so we can document and track not only training, we could build in testing for them and just keep it documented from our standpoint. So like I said, the $5,000 is actually for the purchase of the program. They built all of our forms, all of our data, all of our users, all of our user groups, everything you could think about into there. Our whole policy book will be in there, the whole training officer. I talked to the fire marshal's office and a couple other ones. We can even break them down into groups at a later date. But while we're in the preliminary stages and they're looking to get their name out there with this particular program, they're giving us all user access, so we're not paying per user. The $2,000, the extra $2,000 is for the yearly maintenance fee. That includes any kind of update, any assistance that we need, 24/7 support via live person, not somebody that you can't talk to. It's pretty much in a nutshell. There's so much to this program. If you'd like at any time, we can do a webinar if you have any questions on it, but it's so versatile and does a lot for us for accountability anyways.
Yeah. And I know talking to you about this, you had mentioned, I think you touched on it a little bit, but just so people are clear, you talked about being one of the first departments, and I think they're a California-based company?
They are a California-based company, so they're looking to outreach to the East Coast. We did a similar thing when Cody first started out. We jumped on board when the cost basis was extremely low. If this gets out there and more departments start picking up on, I think they're almost at their goal of 20 departments for this initial kind of test. We will be a test facility for the East Coast, so people could fly in tentatively and take a look at how we're utilizing it. So, I mean, eventually what's going to happen, sounds like, after they get a certain amount of people, they're going to start charging per user. So where we have maybe 100 employees throughout the whole township that could be on this setup on it right now, we're not paying per user. The other department coming in will pay per user, and that's quite substantial when you're talking certain programs. It can range anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 depending on what you're talking about.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn over to board comment, and then we'll see if there's any public comment or questions. So, Mr. Galloway.
Yeah, I just reading through it, I saw that the original fee was $10,000. He's already given you a break, a discount down to $7,000.
It wasn't easy.
What's that?
It wasn't easy, but they got there. Yes, sir.
I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Use your gun?
No. A little other persuasions, I guess. Worked out well.
Very good.
Yeah, the original cost was $7,000 for the program, $3,000 for the yearly maintenance.
And then, so it's down to 5,000 and 2,000.
Correct.
Mr. Snipes?
No, nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
I think it sounds like a great idea. Doing some automation around here, you know, I've been around for a month or so. It seems like there's a lot of automation that needs to happen, so congratulations on taking that first step.
Yeah, we've been trying
Yeah.
iPads. Just to let you know also, I mean, with the program that we, in 2010, the live scan and AFIS device, which is the automated fingerprint system that I was before you the first time, generated this year alone, and the officers booked approximately 600 adults on misdemeanor and felonies, and the county reimbursed us this year. We'll be receiving a check just under $37,000. So kind of a technology aspect to go toward funding like this and other devices and kind of things, keep everybody safe.
All right. Great. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Any public comment needed? See no hands. Okay, then. We're looking to authorize purchase of the LEAPS program for the police department in the amount of $7,000. Is there motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, motion made and second. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
All right. Sergeant, thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
all
Board.
your work, and appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you very much. Sorry for being long-winded.
No, it's all right. It's all right. All right, item 7 is ratifying the Public Works contract. There are 3 labor unions present in the township, police officers, the AFSCME, American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, and the Public Works Union. Their contracts typically come up at different times. And this was the Public Works contract, which has been worked on for quite a while. Mr. Gray and our labor attorney, Mr. Yeager, worked for a very long time. I think it was overall a pretty good negotiation, you know, very kind of friendly negotiations with our Public Works Department here at the Township. Mr. Gray?
Township has a memorandum of agreement settled on with the Public Works Union, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 542. This agreement is a 5-year term and will commence retroactively from January 1st, 2011 through December 31st, 2015. The board is asked to ratify the agreement with the Public Works Union.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Comments or questions for Mr. Gray regarding the contract? Mr. Galloway?
Well, if both sides are happy with it, 5 years is a nice term. It's no questions.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know. Is the length of the contract normally 5 years, or is the length also something that we negotiate? Is there a authority controlling that kind of thing?
We negotiated the 5 years.
And our other contracts are
Police is 4 years,
4 years.
and I believe the AFSCME was initially 4 years with a 2-year extension that was
And
agreed upon.
so what dates are they then?
The police and AFSCME are both up December 31st, 2012,
Okay. All right, thank you.
as well as the crossing guards as well.
Oh, right. Okay. Mr. Dents?
And they've been 2 years without a contract, right? So this is going to go back 2 years?
Their contract expired December 31st, 2010. It'll be retroactive to January 1st, 2011.
January. Okay. That's all I had.
Mr. Rocco?
Item number 6 is a signing bonus of $500 per person. Is that for new employees, or?
No, that's for all of the employees in the union.
Okay. And what was the thought process there? Do you know?
Yes, we tried to use that to have this agreement work
And sent them to sign?
We're getting some concessions.
Yes, we're getting concessions for the healthcare.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Public comment on the labor agreement? Seeing no hands. All right, then. Is there a motion to approve the Public Works contract with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 542.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, items 8 and 9, pretty similar standard things we do every year. Advertising for looking forward to the summer, because it feels almost feels like summer now. Mr. Gray.
Yes, the first one is for authorization to advertise for liquid chlorine and muriatic acid. During the season at the Pinewood Pool, chlorine and muriatic acid are purchased for the use throughout the time period. The township has used Baradelli services for this in the past few years. At this time, the board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement for chlorine and muriatic acid for the Pinewood Pool for the calendar year 2012.
And how much do we typically spend in a year on these chemicals?
It was approximately $22,000 last year.
Okay, which is above the new threshold for what we have to bid.
That's correct.
Okay.
18,500.
Right. Which was also over the old threshold of what we had to bid. Okay, comments or questions from board members? This is authorizing advertisement. We'll get bids in from the various companies, and then we can go with the lowest bidder, provided they provide the service we want in a manner we want. Mr. Galloway?
No comment.
Mr. Snipes?
No.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
No questions.
No comments or questions from the public. All right, is there a motion to authorize advertisement for the liquid chlorine and muriatic acid?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and landscaping services?
For the landscaping services, the township does have a variety of locations that require landscaping services, including mulching, planting flowers, weeding, etc. The township has used Dawn to Dusk for this service the past few years. At this time, the board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement for landscaping services for the township for the year 2012.
Okay. Mr. Gray, I know we've had some issues in the past with the landscaping. I know you're going to be working with Mr. Clark's office to try and make it as clear as possible as to what these contractors are bidding on. And I think we also, remembering the problem we had last year, if we could in some way, shape, or form make it clearer than it already, I guess, is probably on the documentation, that these bids have to be put in a very specific way. You know, the I's have to be dotted, the T's have to be crossed. We ran into issues last year where we had a couple of contractors who put in bids and left various things empty. Didn't add up certain numbers, didn't specify certain, and that essentially makes them, illegitimate bids. We can't accept them. And it caused some issues last year, but, the law is the law. And the bidding process is clear. It's, to make sure that we're not, just picking, my cousin's, landscaping firm to do all the work in Falls Township, and he gets a big check. I don't actually have a cousin who does landscaping, but if I did, just to prevent that kind of thing from happening. So, but just if we can, maybe big font or something like that, highlighted or something, to prevent. Because I know you took a beating last year, Mr. Gray, which was unnecessary. You didn't, but you were just basically doing your job. So, comments or questions from board members, Mr. Galloway?
No comment.
I'm sorry, just authorizing advertisement again, so. Mr. Snipes?
No.
Mr. Dents?
Maybe, seeing how the past 2 years there's been a lot of confusion, we should consider asking Dawn to Dusk or maybe even another landscaper for some input on, what is the gray area that they weren't clear on in the bidding process, because it's happened, the past couple years. In fact, there was one that didn't even bother bidding because he was so confused by it last year.
That's right.
I think, Mr. Dents, the problem last year was not so much in the specifics regarding the landscaping, but in the instructions in the bid specs. And that's one of the things that we've worked to try to correct this year, that everything is much more specific and much more direct in what we're requiring from the bidders. And that's what Mr. Gray and Jim Usual from my office have been working on to try to tighten that up. And I think we're going to have a bid spec that will be clear, unambiguous, and you'll be able to make an apples and apples comparison.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Mr. Rocco?
No questions.
Okay. Any public comment needed? See one hand. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Andrew Dell, Falls Township. I just thought maybe if you guys spent maybe $200 or $300 extra in this bid and asked for triple ground black dyed mulch as opposed to the mulch you've been using here, the stuff you've been using turns gray in about 30 days. The black mulch will stay black all season long. It'll look good, and it might even look good into the springtime. And you might not even need as much quantity as mulch
Next year.
the next year. And maybe, how many street trees do we have left that were donated for the last 5 years?
I don't know.
Because you guys have a lot of dead bushes. You know, even though the building itself has fallen down, at least maybe we could distract people, make the landscaping look good. You know, put some plants out there, maybe some flowers out at the front. Because a tray of flowers is $12, $14. I mean, you know, for a total of maybe $300, you drastically improve the curb appeal of this place. And just a thought. And if you have any thoughts or you want me to help outline it, I don't believe I'll be bidding on it, but who knows, if you actually have a normal bid packet, I will maybe throw a bid in this year. But also the fall cleanups. You may want to put something in that, let's not wait till all the leaves collect in the parking lot. Maybe 4 visits, 4 mandatory visits, and maybe 1 interim, depending if we're having a meeting here or something important is going on here to clean up the parking lot. Because you probably noticed, and I'm not busting Don's chops, it's just he does the leaves here, but they continually fall, and you have meetings here all the time, and the leaves are coming into the building. So maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks during the fall, come through and just blow the leaves away from the building, even if you just blow them out to the turf areas and pick them up at a later date, just to keep the perimeter of this building looking good through the fall. So specify numbers of visits for stuff like that so everyone bids on the same exact thing. Because if I bid on it and I come here 6 times and he bids on it and comes here 2 times, he's definitely going to be cheaper than me. Right. So just, and if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, because it's not, they would be biased towards me. Everyone would be getting the same numbers, and they just have to plug in their, how much they would want for it.
Okay, thank you. It's all good input. I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jump the gun there a little bit. All right. Okay, is there a motion then to authorize advertising for the landscape services?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, looking at the minutes, 3 sets of minutes, December 20th, January 3rd, and January 17th. Mr. Clark, are we able to vote on these sort of en masse? We have to vote on them each individually?
Even though Mr. Galloway and Mr. Rocco were not on the board for the meeting on the 20th, they are not necessarily affirming that they were here or that they know all of these things that were said. They are just voting to confirm that these are the official minutes of the township. So they can vote on the minutes for December 20th. If they are uncomfortable doing so, then you may
maybe what
want to
we'll do is
separate out the two.
We'll keep that one right. We'll keep December 20th separate, and we'll do the 3rd and 17th together, maybe just shorten things up a little bit. In terms of comments or questions, we can listen to comments and questions about all 3 sets of minutes. If anyone has any comments or questions, you know, corrections of any type, something they thought they saw typos or something like that. Mr. Galloway, any comments or questions on any of the minutes?
No.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
None.
Mr. Rocco?
None.
And I have none. Okay. All right, so we'll just take a look. We'll do December 20th differently. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 20th as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. All right. The minutes for January 3rd and January 17th, hearing no motions to make, or hearing no disputes of any kind, is there a motion to accept both of those sets of minutes as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. 3 for 3, Mrs. Pullen.
Excellent minutes once again,
That's
Mrs.
right.
Millen. Forgot to say that. I don't know if I need to say that anymore, but I will anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody okay?
How many names from
Need a break? All right, okay. All right, we have public comment next. We have a couple names on the list. Mr. Kinney, you're first.
Roland Kenny Falls Township. First, I'll apologize. No more, you'll never hear me mention a casino again. I just found out have to be within out of 10 miles. So, but I walked that, and it's 10 miles, one or 2 feet, so we should make it. But anyway, on the 26th of January, I was invited down 3 Arches. And I must tell you, gentlemen, we're very lucky in this township to have a young lady to run 3 Arches and take care of it the way she does. Liz Reese is a fantastic caretaker of the building. We had 2 school buses there from Walt Disney 5th graders. And if any of their parents are watching, they were all little gentlemen and ladies. They were very brilliant kids, too. We asked them questions, and around 70–80% of the questions they answered. So she does a beautiful job down there. But then she took us outside, and I started walking around, and I seem to remember 3–4 years ago, it was approved. I think Mr. Sullivan went down there and seen the back and was going to do something with the back, come around to the front, was going to do something with the front. Still ain't done. And it's an accident waiting to happen. I can see it in the future. It's an accident waiting to happen. It's just like the shed that they have sitting there. I understand they might, we were supposed to get them replaced. Well, that shed, there's a hole in the roof. I mean, you know, at an angle, and the hole's right in the roof. It's like a fireman went up there. But because I
Richie didn't like that comment.
like a fireman went up there. But I think we promised her that before we had the boat ramp. I think that was promised. And it still ain't finished, still ain't done. And she keeps that place immaculate. And she's really a good teller of what happened back then. I don't know if you know it, but that's 300 years come October. So, and everything in the building that was given to them, the house that was given to them, is the same. Nothing is different. Everything's the same in there. And I had something else I want to. I already apologize for the casino, but we got to get something in this township that's going to pay money. I know recreation is one thing, but man, how much recreation do we need? I mean, I went down that park. You're right, it's beautiful now. $7 million, but they have a walkway. I don't know if it's 8 or 10 feet wide, but I walked it a couple times. I think it's 2 miles around. And there's a lot of people down there. But that's recreation. And it'll take them twice as long to get down there. To get down there, they must go to Penn Manor. So maybe you can hook it up where, you know, we got to have something to pay. We need something in this township to pay for what we're doing. If you put up something that you get money for, you can build anything you want. But right now, we're going to be the sports capital of the world, man. We keep on having all these parks and trails, walking. So maybe keep that in mind. Good night and God bless you.
Okay, thank you. And just so you know, Mr. Kinney, we did have a couple people from Mr. Sullivan's office were out there, I think Friday actually, doing some preliminary work for what you're talking about at 3 Arches. So that's...
Oh, he must have heard me.
Yep, he knew.
Man, the man hears me, boy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mariani.
Now, earlier in this meeting, we witnessed 5 wolves and 1 sheep voting on what we were going to have for dinner. And guess who won? Now, I have a project in mind that I'd like to locate down on Route 1, that section where you want to draw traffic and so forth. and I believe it'll provide a true learning experience, and it'll be self-supporting because you'll have to pay to avail yourself of this. And what I'm proposing is that we build a planetarium there on Route 1. Now, the purpose would be to view far out celestial bodies and other astronomical phenomena from where government projects originate. So I want to remind you one more time tonight, the reason so many municipalities find themselves in economic distress, and there's an awful lot of them that do, 200 of them I think are getting ready now to declare bankruptcy, is because they've obligated their municipality to unnecessary projects beyond what I consider to be the role of government. That's, as many things as we agree on, that's the one thing we don't agree on, is the role of government and the subsequent cost to maintain these projects after you put them in place. These projects, you have to remember, become a permanent part of your budget. Each one of them is going to represent a future tax increase when the initial funding ceases. So if you'll keep that in mind, and please be careful what you're obligating your township for. I think you people are reasonable, but I think there's some of these projects that maybe we ought to just reconsider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bill Reese?
Good evening. How are we doing today? Okay, I'm just going to make two quick announcements. The first one has to do with our skateboard park. During the winter months, which is basically December 1st through the end of February, our skateboard park is just open on weekends only, Saturday and Sunday. However, coming up on February 20th and 21st, President's Day on the 20th, and then 21st, the Pennsbury School District is closed both days. So I talked to Mr. Gray about this, and he was in agreement with my suggestion of opening the skateboard park for those 2 days since the kids are off school. And with the mild temperature, not going to win, right? With the mild temperature we've been having, I think the skateboard park will be pretty crowded that day. So that's the first announcement. The second announcement is kind of a congratulation. It was brought to my attention that the Pennsbury High School cheerleaders finished first in their national competition down in Baltimore 2 weekends ago. So I just wanted to announce that for you guys. I know this will be played, twice a day for the next. And the girls really deserve congratulations for that. So we just give a quick round of applause. And I think Mr. Gray is going to make a couple more announcements for me later, but that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, it wasn't.
Just one more thing. I just want you to know the park recreation vehicle was cheaper than the other three. So.
That's good. Yeah, I wasn't really aware of the Pennsbury cheerleading competition. That's great news. That's good for them. Those are all the names on the list. Any other interested people? No? Okay, so all right, we've come to executive session, and we actually do have a need for an executive session, so we'll take a short recess to have an executive session and come back and finish up our business. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're returning from our executive session. Mr. Clark, we have a summary of our session, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The board held an executive session to consult with myself and Ms. Gallagher regarding two matters of potential litigation that have arisen in the township in the last several weeks.
Okay, thank you. All right, manager comment is next item on our agenda. Mr. Gray?
Yes, just a few items tonight. First item is a letter from Michael Bradley dated February 2nd regarding Superior Motor Services and the purchase of the Graber Lumber property located at 218 Lincoln Highway. He's requesting a 60-day extension on the conditional use application. The request for the 60-day extension is effective February 24th, 2012. The board is asked to consider this extension.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members? No.
Nope. None.
Okay. Is there a motion to grant the 60-day letter of extension from February 24th, 2012 for Superior Motor Services Incorporated?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Next item, the township received a letter from TAG, which is Towns Against Graffiti, requesting the township's annual donation of $5,000 for this organization. This has been approved in the 2012 budget. The board is asked to consider this donation at this time.
All right. Mr. Gray, just give us an idea of the kind of work TAG does for us in the township.
TAG goes around the township and they clean up the various graffiti that has been put at different locations in the township. Usually what happens, somebody will identify a location that has graffiti. It will be referred to our police department. The police department will call TAG and they will come out and clean it up. There was a total of 47 locations in 2011 that had graffiti that TAG did address, and they basically call whenever we need them.
These are private and public locations, or
Yes,
are they
they
just
are.
township property?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I've also seen them on the side of the road with like crews of younger people cleaning up, so they do a good job.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions regarding the $5,000 donation to TAG?
No.
Is there a motion to grant? Oh, yeah.
We did make this in our budget. We
Yes.
included it in our budget, yes. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the $5,000 donation to TAG?
So moved?
Seconded?
All right. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
My next item, the township received a letter from George Galloway, president of the Bucks County St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee. The Bucks County St. Patrick's Day Parade will be marching for the 24th year in Falls Township on March 10th, 2012. They are requesting their assistance in the amount of $6,000 from the township for this event. This is a budgeted item for the year 2012, and the board is asked to consider this donation at this time.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members?
Just as a member of the committee, I feel I'll abstain from the discussion.
Okay. That's fine.
We also had included this in our budget.
Yep. Yeah, this has been included for a while, for several years now. It used to be 5,000, it's gone up to 6,000. So, and obviously the parade is probably one of, I don't know if it's the biggest parade in the county. I mean, sure, it's got to be one of the biggest parades in the county. But it, obviously it's big in Falls Township, and it's, I've been in it for several years now. It's a lot of fun. So, Mr. Clark, comment?
Didn't Mr. Snipes have a very interesting costume last year?
Oh, yes, he did. No, he was a cow, I believe.
Were you a cow then? Is that right?
I'm trying to remember if I was No, I was a turkey. I have to say I was a turkey.
Turkey. That's right. Some kind of connection to
Yeah, I
St.
thought
Patrick's
it was the
Day with
Thanksgiving
that.
Day
I'm not sure.
parade. I've gotten confused. If you'd like me to, I'll break it out again.
All right, is there a motion to approve the $6,000 donation to the Bucks County St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Abstain?
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
My next item, the township received a letter from Robert Tracy representing the American Legion. The American Legion Post 834 in Fallsington is requesting assistance from the board with expenses for their annual Memorial Day Parade in 2012. The parade will be held on Sunday, May 27th, 2012. A budget has been submitted with their letter, and this amount has been included in the Falls Township budget, and the request is for $6,000. The board is asked to consider this donation as well.
Okay, another great event held here in the township. This is the Memorial Day Parade. Been happy to have been part of that as well, and we've made donations to that for several years, and also included in our budget. Comments or questions, board members?
None.
No.
Nope. Nope.
And again, 6,000, Mr. Gray, correct?
6,000,
All right,
yes.
so we're looking for approval to donate $6,000 to the American Legion Post in Fallsington for the Memorial Day Parade.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second it.
Okay, Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Recently, the township received an application for the annual spring 2012 bare root tree offer. The bare root trees would be available in April of this year for planting shortly thereafter. The township has done similar bare root trees programs in prior years, planting them throughout the township. Over 230 trees have been purchased through the Tree Vitalize program by Falls Township. An application is required for the program. The Shade Tree Committee is requesting 40 trees at a cost of $50 each for a total of $2,000. The deadline for the application is February 24th. The board is asked to consider the purchase of 40 trees as part of the Tree Vitalize program for $2,000.
Okay. I know the Shade Tree Committee's been doing a lot of work. Mr. Gray's been working a lot with them over the past year or so, actually. Obviously, thank you for all your work that you've done, and thank those the ladies on that board for all the work they've done. Comments or questions from board members regarding the trees? No.
Will our funds come from the tree fund from developers who we've agreed to accept the equivalent in funds for trees that we don't require them to plant as per?
In the past, we've paid for this out of the general fund. We could look into the tree fund account, see if the adequate funding is available to pay for this.
I don't know whether there are funds in the tree account. I have no idea.
There could be. We could review that. If so, we could take it out of that account.
Because otherwise, have we budgeted for this? I don't remember.
Yes, this is a budgeted item. It's been a budgeted
Okay,
item.
that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
None.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion then to expend $2,000 for the Bare Root Tree Vitalize program?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
I also want to announce the South End Auto Parts Mylars are ready for signature. Finally, there's a few announcements from the Park and Rec Department. First item is the annual Easter egg hunt will be held Saturday, March 24th at the Township Community Park at 1 p.m. This event is for children ages 10 and under. The Easter Bunny will be there, as well as Otto the Clown Balloon Man. There will be candy provided, and this event is free. This annual Breakfast with the Bunny event will be held Saturday, March 31st on the grounds of the Three Arches from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. This event is for children ages 10 and under. There will be breakfast, including pancakes, donuts, coffee, and juice. In addition, children games, a DJ, Otto the Clown Balloon Man, plus much more will be included. This event is free. And that's all I have.
Nice job. Just to clarify, Otto the Balloon and the Balloon Man are two different people, right?
No, they're actually the same.
Otto the Clown and Balloon Man.
Yeah, it's one title.
One title. That's a big business card. And I'm sure. How do the 10-year-olds like their coffee? Is it black or do they like the sugar?
I don't know the answer.
To that. Kind of.
Sounds like a great event.
Yeah, it
Both
does.
events.
It does, and it is a great thing, and it's one of the examples of the kind of recreation we like to offer here, and sometimes it's a little tough to charge for that kind of thing, but I think it's something that makes a community really a community. It's when you offer things like that, whether it's Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or the community day we offer or a boat ramp, those kinds of things. So. All right. You done, Mr.
That's all I
Gray?
have, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Board comment. Mr. Dents?
Yes. The weather lately has been very mild, and I know it's only February, but we've already begun planning this year's Queue for the Troops. Last year we had a 2-day barbecue event, 2 days of car show, crafters there both days. It was a little rainy. We had to use some bus service, but it was our first year. This year is going to be much bigger and much more better organized, and we'll have more details to follow. What else? Oh, we heard today that Tyburn Road is reopened. The construction's complete. All lanes are open. They will at some point have to close again over the Amtrak tracks. That bridge has to be repaired, but they need to work a lot of things out with Amtrak before that can happen. And lastly, I'm hearing tonight was my son Jack's birthday, so happy birthday to Jack. I don't know if he's watching. He will be watching at some point. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Galloway?
No comment this evening.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to thank you for an excellent meeting once again. And also, I wanted to comment on our decision to allocate, I believe, $12,500 to ACT Engineer for their work to make applications to DCNR on behalf of the township to hopefully work on, make plans for Phase 1 of the Biles Island project. I think it's a great step for us, and I'm glad to see us making a forward movement on that, at least to open up that top portion of the island to our residents as soon as we can. And that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rocco?
No comments. Good night.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I just want to make a couple comments. I want to, we've been here at the township and obviously the supervisor for several years now. And there really are a lot of very, very good people that work in this building. You saw a lot of them here this evening, whether it was, Mr. DiPolito from the fire marshal's office, was Sergeant Boschman from the police department doing his work with making sure our police department is even better than it already is with updated computer technology. Mr. Gray and all the work that he's done, just putting this agenda together and doing all the work that's necessary, negotiating, helping to negotiate the contract with the Public Works, Bill Reese at Park and Rec, and Tom Bennett doing all the work he does, and obviously the supervisors, here, and the staff we have, with our professionals. And, it makes our job much easier, and we really are blessed here in this township to have a lot of very, very good, talented people throughout this building that work very hard to make the township, go the best they can. And I think they do a great job, and I want to thank them very much. And one of the things we got in our packet here was a recognition for our finance director, Ms. Rukoff, from the Government Finance Officers Association. And this essentially is a certificate of achievement for her for basically excellence in financial reporting, which has been awarded to Falls Township thanks to her efforts and the efforts of the finance department, the ladies in that department. Mr. Gray won this award several years in a row, and Ms. Rukoff is picking up where he left off. And so on a lot of occasions we hear a lot of things about the money we have in this township, and we are a very wealthy township. And I think overall this board, not just this one, but the ones, everybody who's been sitting up here with me for the most part, the majority at least, are very concerned about making sure the money we have lasts as long as we can, and making sure that we get the most out of the township dollars, whether it's taxpayer dollars or it's money from a landfill or some other area, making sure that we're putting it to the best use and being conscious of the fact that it isn't going to be there forever, and we know that. But at the same token, we do feel like we can invest it in ways to make the township even better than it is. And we're not always going to agree on things, but I think hopefully everyone would agree that the 5 people up here now, in addition to other people that have sat up here, Mr. Prokopiak was here for some issues earlier in the meeting, all of us have our feeling as to what we think would be best for the township, and we're doing what we really think is going to help the most people and make the community even better. And we do put a lot of thought into it and put a lot of effort into finding out what the details are and working with our staff here and weighing the options and talking with each other. And I think even the people that were disagreeing a little bit with the Biles Island, everybody was doing it in a very professional manner, agreeing to disagree. And it was, we're not, like I said, we're not going to agree on everything, but at least we can do it in a way that reflects positively on the township, and we've seen that, at this meeting today. So even the people that were not agreeing with us, I thank them for their input, and and I want them to keep coming and keep giving their ideas, and what makes this community good. And so with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.